I'm Mel Witcher,
And I'm Jimmy Harper.
and we're going to tell you today about the high school Bible program at Brentwood Christian. As you know, the mission of Brentwood Christian School is to lead students to love God. That's how it begins, and it begins in a sense with the Bible department. Let's tell you about the 4 programs. Students entering Brentwood Christian School for the first time, including all freshmen and new 10th through 12th graders, are assigned to one of the Bible Foundations classes. The fall semesters focuses on the story of the people of Israel from the creation through the years of kingship, ending with the Babylonian exile. Students there will be encouraged to find their identity in the Lord, the great I Am, as they hear the story of God's faithfulness to Israel. In the spring semester, we discuss the story of Jesus as told by Luke, and then the beginnings of the new Israel, the church, in the book of Acts. And students will be encouraged to see their own lives as a response, as a continuation of the ongoing story of the people of God and the self-emptying love of Jesus to those people.
Sophomore year, students will start out in the fall learning about the Gospel of Mark. And the Gospel of Mark is a great space to introduce students to the Gospels, as Mark just cuts to the chase. And you get into immediately the story of Christ and his works and that narrative, which is a fantastic start to the year, as Jesus as a miracle worker and as one who gave his life as a ransom for all. And then in the spring, the sophomores will begin a study of 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, and then 1st and 2nd Corinthians, and take a look at the letters that the Apostle Paul wrote to those churches to encourage them, to teach them, and to help them grow. And we'll ask the questions as like, what did this mean to the original hearers and readers? And then we'll also ask, what did these letters mean for us today?
Thank you. Well, the juniors, the 11th graders, will focus on higher level thinking, conceptual thinking, in order to see God's broad movements throughout the entire Scripture and continuing today, and then how we can act wisely in response to God's actions for us. During the fall, the juniors will study and discuss the prophetic books of Jonah, Obadiah, Amos, and Hosea, and focus on God's desire for moral behavior within individuals and for justice within the entire society. Then in the spring, juniors will study the Gospel of Matthew and the very practical book of James to understand the impact of the revelation of God in their day-to-day life.
Seniors in the first semester will look at the book of John, which is a beautiful book with the whole motive and purpose to teach and to convince that you may believe Jesus was the Son of God and the Christ. And we'll explore that. We'll ask the big question of John, what are you looking for? Which is an excellent question for seniors about to graduate to ask themselves. What are you looking for in life? And what would that question have meant to those at the time, reading John's book in the Gospels? Then, one of my favorite things about that particular semester is the invitation that you see in John, extended to the students to come and see Jesus. And in the spring semester, the seniors will study the book of Romans, and they'll take a close look, chapter by chapter, of the letter that Paul wrote to the church in Rome. They'll look at Paul's assertions, his arguments, and his claims about the power and wonder of the gospel and the truth that Jesus was the Christ and has been offered as an atoning sacrifice for all of us. We'll explore the idea of what it means to live without being under the law, but under a new law of grace. And we'll invite seniors as well to ask the questions about what is next. So I believe in Jesus, now what? And one of the main projects we build up to is a simple one, and it is to ask students to go find churches around the universities that they are going to be attending after they graduate high school, to encourage students to pursue community. Just like Paul teaches about how to do community together in the book of Romans, we also ask ourselves, what does that mean for me, and how do I do that well?
Thank you. Again, to sum up, the purpose of our Bible department is to help our students develop a basic body of knowledge to help them learn to read the Scriptures in its literary, historical, and theological context, and to also develop the practices of spiritual discipline and prayer. Through these studies, our prayer is that our children learn to love God by understanding the story of salvation and their place in it, by developing a personal relationship with Jesus, and finally, by being closely tied with the church that bears his name.